الله أكبر الله أكبر.
All right, Assalamu alaikum. Oh, that was horrible. Assalamu alaikum. There we go. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Quick question. Sorry, sisters, it's the brother session, so the examples are going to be kind of towards the brothers. So tomorrow the sister section will have sisters examples. Just a disclaimer. Who knows if Andrew Wiggins, the trade went through today? La ilaha, man, sad days, man. Sad days. Oh, man. What about Nick Stauskas? I know he's a Mississauga guy. Do you think he's going to bust or he's going to be good? Qasim knows, bro. Oh, that. How you calling out your homeboy? He's a bust. Oh, subhanAllah, so true. Okay, khair, inshallah. So, in my session, I'm going to talk about two things, or three things, basically. First is why you should volunteer, why you should, leave your house, do something with your time and your, effort and your money, right? Why you should generally volunteer. Second thing, how does YM fit into that picture of volunteering and, youth activism? And the last thing I want to talk about is, the personal struggles that you have, right? You want to volunteer, but you weren't practicing before. You want to volunteer, but, your crowd isn't that strong, right? Your friends aren't that practicing, right? How do you get into that mode of, let's go do something for Islam? Those are the top three things I want to talk about today. So first thing I want to start off with is, I know there's a lot of engineers here, right? There's a lot of athletes here. Now, think about the most prestigious company that you can think of, right? It's Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, right? Think about that, right? If you're looking for co-op jobs, you're going to the workforce, or if you're an athlete, right? Think about your sports team, your Raptors, right? The Maple Leafs, right? Think about the highest level of whatever you decree as success, right? Now, imagine if, next week the CEO or the owner, decided to have open tryouts or, open interviews, right? Because there's a need in that company or organization that needs to be filled. And the CEO decides, let's just have open interviews, right? But what if, you're good at it, you're a good basketball player, you're a good athlete, right? What if you go to those interviews? What if you go to those, tryouts and you make it? How would you feel? That level of, passion, that ambition, that, that excitement, right? Well, I want to connect that to volunteering, because that's exactly what the example of volunteering is, right? Who's the owner of this religion, right? Whose deen is this? It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looked at us and He chose us because we are good enough to be Muslim, we're good enough to be volunteers, right? And in the Quran, Hajj, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I want to talk about two ayahs. The first one is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about that He chose messengers from among angels and men, right? And then 3 ayahs later, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, work for this deen as it is meant for you worked for, because He chose you. Now the thing I want to focus on is the word chose, right? In English, it's the same word, chose. But in Arabic, it's 2 different words. For the first one, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He chose messengers among men, angels and men, He chose the word istifa, right? Istifa is pretty much like you make a decision on your personal preference. When you're at the store and you choose Pepsi over Coke, right? 7-Up over Sprite, just because, you like the taste of it, right? Or you like, that's what you wanted to do. It's a personal choice. That's istifa, right? But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, work for the deen that is meant for you to work for, because He chose you, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't use the word istifa. He uses the word ijtiba. And ijtiba means making a decision, making a choice, because it is the right choice, it is the perfect choice for that scenario. So when when you're breaking your fast for iftar, right, you choose to drink water, not pop, even though pop tastes better, because water is the right choice for that scenario. Know what I'm saying? Right? It is the ideal choice for that situation, right? That's ijtiba. You made a decision because water is more qualified than pop in that scenario. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He chose angels because that was His will. He wanted to choose, Jibril alayhi salam, He wanted to choose angels to do certain tasks. That's because that's how He felt like it, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when He chose us to be Muslims, it wasn't because He felt like it, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He made it because we're the perfect people for this task, right? Now this concept applies to everything, not just volunteering, right? There's a reason why we're given the siblings that we're given. There's a reason why we live in Canada, not somewhere else. There's a reason why we live in this generation, not before or afterwards, right? It's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looked at us and He made us for this specific task that we are meant to strive, we are the perfect choice to live in this time and age, right? And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. And then he says before that, work for his religion because that's as it is meant to be worked for, right? And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, right? Because we're the perfect choice for this deen. Oh, sorry. Now, when you're picked for something, right, like something this great, right, doesn't it make you think or wonder like what quality I have that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala picked me, right? And not the celebrities that we look at, right? What is it in me that made me to the level that I am, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala picked me, right? Doesn't that make you think that what do I have, right? Because what I'm saying, it's not an outward quality, right? It doesn't make you think that what made me or what do I have that made me to this level of becoming Muslim, right? And that's where Muslims comes in, right? I know it says intro to YM. I'm not going to talk about YM a lot. I just want to put it out there that we need to volunteer, right? But what I'm saying is what YM can offer is that what I can explain it is YM is like high school for Islamic volunteering. You do so many diverse things, and at the end of it, when you graduate, when you're first year university, your second year university, you can see what things you're good at and what things you're not good at, right? Same thing with high school, right? You go into it in grade 9, you don't really know much, right? You take your high school makes you take classes, right? After the end, you realize, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go in this program. I'm gonna do this, engineering, whatever it is, right? That's pretty much what YM is. If you are very creative and you know how to make amazing posters that look awesome, YM has a spot for you, right? If you can give talks, right? If you have a solid understanding of public speaking, there's a spot in YM for you. Right? If you can do neither of those things, but you're really athletic, right? And you can lead people on the court or on the field, there's a spot in YM for you, right? And then if you don't have any of those, but you have great ideas on how programs should be established and this should be worked, so on and so forth, there's a spot in YM for you, right? Anything that you have your strength in, even if you don't know what your strength is, go start helping out in your local YM, in your local anything, right? It doesn't have to be a group affiliation. To find out what you're good at and find it out early. So by the time you hit your stride, by the time when you have your money and your car and your resources, you are, seriously up there with the most productive volunteers in your city or in your community, right? And why a great place to start it. You might end up working in other organizations, Al-Maghrib, MSA, so on and so forth, right? But starting at IM or Young Muslims will help you realize what you're good at, and you can focus on that so you can make yourself as a Muslim better and your religion better, right? And there's one hadith I want to focus on. I know usually talks without hadith or Quran is really boring, so I apologize for that, but I could only find one hadith in my time, is that the Prophet ﷺ said to Ali radiallahu anhu, right? Said that he swore by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if Allah guides one person through you, it is better than you than a herd of red camels, right? And that's literally what volunteering is about. Your main motivation should be my words, my actions, the time I put in is going to help someone get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Now it seems vague, right? But let's just use this conference as an example. There's thousands of people here, okay? Now if one of us does something that we learned today from Dr. Altaf, from other speakers, and we act upon it, they get a reward for that. They teach someone else, they also get a reward for that, the speakers. And on top of that, the volunteers, the guys wearing the white shirts, right? They also get a part of a share in that, right? Think about it. Thousands of people doing thousands of good deeds, right? And teaching it to others for as long as they live. Are we starting to see the amount of good that we can get from just volunteering at a one-time conference? It doesn't have to be a full-time commitment. Just once a year conference, maybe a month tournament, whatever it is, right? But you have to do something, right? That's one of the first things they teach you in business. You have to learn, figure out a way to work minimum and get paid the most. Isn't this the simple answer? Volunteer for 5 hours and you literally have good deeds for the rest of your life that aren't even included in yours, right? That's what the value of volunteering is, right? And the last thing I want to end off with is the personal, struggles that we have when you want to volunteer. Is, you weren't the best Muslim when you were 12, 13. Right? You weren't with the right crowd. We all been those scenarios, right? But you have a change of heart. You want to start helping, right? But you don't feel comfortable. Or how do you tackle that? How do you oppose that? Musa alayhi salam. Think about the worst things that you think you've done when you're 12, 13. Right? Think about it. I'm not going to mention it because you know yourself better, right? Musa alayhi salam was accused of killing someone. He killed someone. Imagine if you were 12 years old and you killed someone. Right? And when he becomes later on when he was 30 and 40s, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, just like he's telling us in the Quran, go back to Egypt, not in the outskirts, in the heart of the palace of Pharaoh, where the order is to shoot to kill. The guards have been ordered to, kill him on the spot. Walk in there and tell him, give da'wah to him. Right? Now think about your whatever bad deed you think you've done or we've done. Do you think it's worse than killing someone? Right? It's not. Right? If Musa Islam could do that, right, what excuse are we making? And Dr. Altaf took my other, example of Nuh alayhi salam, right? It's 950 years. So if our programs don't do success, after 6 months, 7 months, there's no one coming to our neighbor nets, there's no one coming to our halakas, right? What are we crying about? He did this for 950 years, and the majority of the narrations say that only 80 people became Muslim after 950 years, right? So in the Quran, there's a lot of motivation for us. There's a lot of stories for us, right? And that's the first. I'm going off on a tangent. The first one is your personal faults, right? Right? I wasn't a good person back then. Don't worry about it, right? There were prophets who messed up in their early times or seemed to mess up, and they still ended up becoming one of the greatest people that ever walked this earth, right? Exact same example that we have to follow. That's the first one. The second one is, okay, I want to volunteer, I'm confident in it, but there's a certain individual at the masjid, there's elders that, yell at me, whatever, right? There's this person that, I don't get along with. Therefore, I'm not going to go, help out the volunteer, right? We have to know two things. First of all, listen to their criticism. If the person's saying, oh, brother, you can't, you're a horrible person because you swear, right? We always see you with the wrong crowd, right? You always have yada, yada, yada. If their criticisms are valid, don't let it get to you personally, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is guiding you through that person, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching you a lesson through that person. And if it's a valid criticism, take it to heart and make it in your intention that I'm going to fix it. Maybe you'll fix it next week, next year, but it's going to get fixed. That's the first scenario. Second scenario is if they're just haters, right? Again, haters will be haters. The greatest of people, the prophets had haters. They didn't stay in their house, right? Again, the brother mentioned the second and third stories were all about standing up and go preaching to the people, right? And who had a more hostile crowd than the Prophet ﷺ? Right? So what are we, making excuses for? That, our masjid isn't the most friendly crowd for youth. Don't say that to yourself, right? You have to learn to empower yourself, right? Because, not empower yourself. Allah subhanahu empowers us through the Quran, but we don't understand it. So again, the brother mentioned read the Quran, have your connection with knowledge, right? And I just want to end off with, it didn't take much time. I just want to end off with one quote that if you guys can remember this when you want to volunteer and you get hesitant and stuff like that, I just want to remind you of this one quote. I tried looking up what said it, I couldn't find it, I apologize. But it's this one quote, right? And it says, when the shaitan comes to you and reminds you of your past, you remind him of his future. Right? So when shaitan reminds you of, oh, you're a messed up person, who is he to tell you? Who's he going to chirp you? Right? He's going to end up in hell. Right? So when there is other people or your internal nafs, right? And when they say that, you're not worthy of it, forget them, right? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling that you're worth it and you're worthy of becoming Muslim, that's your only source of motivation, right? So that's what I want to end off with. Are we doing Q&A or anything or not?
Jazakallah khair, brother. I see you made all the sisters run away. I don't know why they ran away. Jazakallah khair for speaking. If there's one thing that I want you guys to take away from this, I know you guys attend lectures and seminars and conferences regularly, but 2-3 days down the road, things go back to being the same. So inshallah, if there's one thing that we encourage you guys is to volunteer, because at the end of the day, the ummah needs you, and it's bigger than one person. It's not about me, it's not about him, it's not about the lead for YM or any other youth group that you volunteer for. It's about trying to make a difference in someone else's life, just like he mentioned. I think we're on schedule right now, but we're done for the day. We're going to start again tomorrow around noon o'clock. Sorry. Right now, we encourage you guys to go continue the rest of your day in the main hall, inshallah, and we'll see you tomorrow. Jazakallah khair for coming, and we'll see you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.